what have you got going on locally here? As far as kind of some things you're growing. Obviously, we're familiar, obviously, with TJ's Harbor Bar, the Steakhouse, the Country Club, some of these other things we got going on here. What are some other things you've been doing to invest into the community, around Oshkosh?
Well, tomorrow I meet with the Oshkosh City Council. People come to me, right, and they hear the story you just told, and they come up and say, "Hi, how are you?" Let me tell you, and then we go on, and it turns out I kind of like that. This glass guy I found, 5'6" Indian, PhD from MIT, IQ, very high 3 digits. And he wrote me an email on my website, which that's the website, the email of death where it goes in and gets eaten up by the computer. And I read that stuff and I look at it and I go, okay. And he was getting shafted by a venture, which that's sort of a tautology, shafted by an East Coast venture capitalist. They ought to have that as part of the title. And by the way, that's why Silicon Valley works. That's why I told you. The idea is not to become a billionaire and everybody else in your company not make money. The idea is to broadly spread out the stock to every person in the company. Then your company is a team that works together to make something happen. Then if you're working on something visionary that you really like, then that's better. And then that creates the environment I talked about. We're winning is what it was everybody's after. Off track again.
We were talking about the local kind of investments and some other things you're doing locally. You're meeting with the city hall.
So tomorrow I meet with the city council, or at least with the head of the city council, and Oshkosh's got a homeless problem. Mm-hmm. I thought that was in California. I've seen it. It happens here. So we're going to build, assuming we get permission, and in California, for the planning commission to give up its right to make sure everything is expensive and awkward as possible, they would literally watch somebody die in the street of hypothermia. These are bad human beings. Okay, so if that doesn't happen here, we're going to build. It's called a tiny house village. We're going to build 30 houses. Easy. Hard part is getting people to accept help, not doing it. I was still CEO of Cypress when San Jose, California. First year, all the left-wing stuff. You're a hard ass. You talk about Vince Lombardi. You work hard, and then you get the reprisal from the other side. Oh, that's not really right. Our mayor was that way. His name is Liccardo. So one day I read in the San Jose Mercury News, there's a village of houses, and it's under a freeway, and it's fairly big, and it's got a few hundred inhabitants. Okay, those are people trying to make out, and of course in San Jose, where a dump, a scraper, is $600,000, and $1 million house needs a lot of work on a small lot. There obviously are a lot of homeless people because there are a lot of people who can't afford anything close to that. Newspaper article about how smart they are. So they're normal people, engineers, stuff like that. Maybe they got some problems too. But they've engineered their houses, built them out of scrap material. Over time, they got this village. And the dumb bastards in San Jose, California, took bulldozers and knocked down their village. You see, it was a sanitary problem. And you can go in, you can think about all the atrocities committed in the name of public health. And this was one of them. And they bulldozed it. And they didn't even, like, a person might have a bicycle, might have a tent that they finally could buy or was given. And they bulldozed it and they ran a garbage truck behind it and threw all the stuff away. So I asked him to come to my office. I had been a supporter of his. And it just went apeshit. And how can you do this? I said, you guys talk about the hard ass. And I said, and the worst day in my life, I wouldn't take a man's property from him, especially the poorest and the most needy. So he's, shucking and jiving and telling me it's hard, he's got to deal with this and that. And I'm going, no, there's no excuse for any of this shit. So I said, I knew there was a homeless problem. So I said, how about if I build you some houses? And he said, how many? I said, 100. And they'll be small, and they'll be perfect, and they'll be pretty, and they'll be efficient, and they'll be solar powered, and they'll have Wi-Fi, and they'll have communications, and they'll be warm and comfortable. And you just find you get the planning department off my ass so I can build them. Because right now in San Jose, this is not a hyperbole. If I bought a birdhouse in a 1 acre lot, and I put the birdhouse in the middle of the 1 acre lot and said, I want to give that a street number, you're talking $50,000. You got all these commissions, right? And then they help you, quote unquote, help you. And then you got to pay them and their staff and their staff. So I said, you get the planning commission off my ass so I can build something that's structurally sound, and I'll build these houses. And I said, give me a piece of land. I don't care. And they will show up, and they'll be great. And he said, well, what if I need 200 houses? I said, look, we get this thing started, I'll call up my buddies. You'll have 200 houses in a day. Don't worry about it. The next day, his assistant called me up and said, the mayor was wondering, this was a $10 million project. The mayor was wondering if you would mind using the $10 million to buy land. And I said, maybe I didn't communicate well when I described how I would build the houses, how they would be electronic, how they would be solar powered, how they wouldn't even be hooked up to the grid, etc. Maybe you didn't hear all that, although I think I saw you in the room in my office. No, I am not giving $10 million in some political slush fund. I'll build you 100 houses. Do you want them or not? Click. Never heard from him again. And meanwhile, in San Jose, in California, they passed $1 billion bill to house the poor. Nothing happened. And I read this last summer. They finally got 2 houses, a pilot project, and they put them in a parking lot in downtown San Jose. So I have no trouble building the houses. It'll be a good project. They'll be built in Wisconsin. They'll have Solaria panels and Enphase inverters on them, and that kind of stuff. I'll have a talk with my friends in California. Question is, do you want them or not? We'll see tomorrow.
Yeah. How can we support as a community?
That's really a very good question, because you would think the story I just told would cause outrage, and whoever pulled that off would no longer be around as mayor. He's still there, been 6, 8, 10 years. So the answer is the people you elect, and the problem is, the real truth is, he actively reflects their views. You know, they cry for 14 seconds when they're watching the 7 o'clock news. Then they go on and they enjoy the benefits that they've got, and don't worry about the guys on the other side of the chain link fence that they put up to keep them out. So if you just shouldn't put up with it. And politicians will get it. You know, you stand outside their place with a sign that's derogatory, they'll get it. Now, again, I don't think you have to do that kind of stuff here, because the guy I talked to is Mark Roloff, I think.
Yeah.
He's a normal human being. Like, I talked to him, we exchanged data. He asked me some questions. It was like he's a real person. That's not the people I'm used to dealing with.
I think, El, we got time. What's our time? We got time for a couple questions from the audience here. Do we have a mic we can get people? We did have a couple questions, I think, if any of you guys heard something that was interesting, you wanted to dig in on a little bit. If we just ask you, you come up here and grab the mic and ask the question for TJ, and then we'll begin wrapping this thing up. So we have any questions out there? Anyone want to kick this thing off?
How about the Pioneer Inn property?
Yeah, why don't you ask that in the mic, because we can get on there.
Thoughts on what should happen at the Pioneer Inn?
Pioneer Inn. I've been on that property 3 times. I was on it before the old structure got scraped. Never spent time there as a kid, although it was the big place to go when I was a kid, because my house was on a lake. I had a dock. I could fish off my dock, swim off my dock, so I didn't have to go to the Pioneer. I tried a couple times to do a deal, never could get a deal done. The story I just told, it's not about building the house that's easy. It's getting people to find a way to make it happen if they want to make it happen. If they don't want to make it happen, then there'll be all kinds of confusing excuses, and you think you're arguing on the main point, and you're arguing on some little, going down a rat hole, as we say. So I never could get to a coherent deal. I had bought 50 acres south of Oshkosh. Calbus, it's got a nice little harbor there, and it's an RV park, and we're working on that right now. And that one's going to be a nice project. In general, got all this money that comes from high tech, and you can put it back into things that last. So that will be something that will last, and it'll be enjoyable by the average person, not just a rich guy. And then this morning,
Any more details on that you want to share, or is that not public yet?
do we have details?
No? Okay. Your
That-
PR over here
well,
at Wing
no,
is saying
no. We, my venture company, all the stuff I'm talking about is my venture company. My venture company has 2 employees. The CFO is right there. She works in the study, and the CEO, me, I sit in the kitchen. So that's one of the reasons I know all the details about all these things. So she's working on this project, but that's a project we were going to do. Well, this morning, I just walked over from the Oshkosh Northwestern building. You know, that old beautiful building?
Yeah, right here.
I'm not going to rename it the Rodgers Building, but I own it now, and I'm going to try. I'm going to come up something cool there. So those are going to be my next 2 projects.
Hey!
Great news.